Hello, my name is Tommy Bowen. I'm currently enrolled at Thomas University in Criminology 150. Mr. Crawford Battle is my professor. I'm going to be reviewing the conflict theory today. The definition of the conflict theory, according to Wikipedia, are representatives in sociology that emphasize the social, political, and material inequalities of the social group, that critique the broad social political system, or that otherwise detract from structural functionalism and ideological conservatism. Conflict theories draw attention to power differentials such as class conflict in general contrast to historically dominant ideologies. Some of the main contributors: George Void, sociologist is one of the first theorists to relate conflict theory to criminology. He argued that individuals band together in groups because they are social animals and they serve through collective action. He also argued that if a group serves the members, then it survives. If it does not, new groups will form. The entire process of lawmaking is a direct reflection of conflict between interest groups. Karl Marx, whom the conflict theory is most commonly associated with, argued that capitalism would produce internal tension that would end in destruction. He also rejected that wealthy earned their wealth through hard work and deemed this a false consciousness. The oppressor and the oppressed were in constant opposition. Ludwig Komplowitz, a Polish Austrian socialist and political theorist, he theorized that complex human societies evolve from war and conquest. Just like the United States, if it wasn't for the Revolutionary War and we conquested our freedom from the British, we would have never become a society. Lester F. Ward, an American sociologist and paleontologist, assumed a vigorous struggle among various social forces shaped civilization. Ralph Dahrendorf, sociologist and major contemporary contributor, he believes that some people have authority and others are subject to it. The most important characteristics of class are power and authority, and conflict can be constructive or destructive, depending on where it's going. Sometimes conflict brings on positive roles, and sometimes it brings on destructive roles. It depends on if we can come together and come to a conclusion. Austin Turt, he was a criminologist and a major contemporary contributor. Social status is defined by the authority that perceives and evaluates it. Conflict arises when some people challenge authority. Lawbreaking is a measure of the stability between social groups. And most societies begin under a consensus, but as they develop, there are more likely to be conflict among interest groups that cannot be resolved through consensus. I believe that's where the United States is today. We started as a consensus many years back, right after the Revolutionary War, but just like the previous debates and the things between the Democrats and Republicans over the budget issues, they couldn't come to a consensus, so we had conflict. C. Wright Mills, called the founder of modern conflict, is called the modern conflict theory, the founder of modern conflict theory. Social structures are created through people with different interests and resources. The policies of the elite increase conflict and the production of weapons of mass destruction. Gene Sharp, a professor of political science at the University of Massachusetts, says power is not derived from those who are in power. If subjects do not obey the leaders, have no power. That is so true. If the majority of the people are not obeying the people that are in power, then you take their power away from them. Conflict theorists, kind of a review, believe that a struggle for power is a basic feature of human existence. We see this every day. You know, the Democrats, the Republicans, in different countries, people trying to, you know, come into power. Struggles create various interest groups. That's true also. You got different classes of people. You got different people like the gay rights groups, you know, NAACP, the National Rifles Association. There's several different groups out there, and all these struggles create these groups. The controlling group has control of lawmaking and law enforcement. Again, you look at the Republicans and the Democrats. Depending on which one's in power in the House and the Senate is what laws are going to be passed. If the Democrats are in power, then we're going to have the Democratic philosophies in power, and the laws are going to be passed based upon what they believe. If the Republicans are in power, it's just the opposite. Has its roots in rebellion and questions values. Rebellion. If you don't have rebellion against the people that's in charge, then you have no conflicts. And it questions values. This is also true because the people in power have a certain set of values that they get passed into laws, and if it's a question of values, because not necessarily everybody has those values that the people in power are imposing on us. They believe conflict is found all over the world, and we see that every day through the news. Conflict is the reason so many crimes are committed. I would say that's true too. I mean, if you think about it, if everybody agreed on the laws and they thought it was for the best of everybody, then there would be no laws breaking. So, if it wasn't for conflict, there wouldn't be any crimes. Because the people that often commit crimes at that point in time in their life do not believe that they're doing anything wrong. And prisons are full of people that are in conflict with the law. I work in the corrections division, and I see this every day too. Often, instead of trying to conform to the laws, the offenders that we have locked up in the state of Georgia, they're constantly trying to beat the law. They're trying to figure out a way around the law. So they have not come to where most of us are and realize that the law is there for a purpose and that we've got to follow them. So they're in constant conflict, and that's why they're locked up. I hope that I was able to explain this. I'm not a very good speaker. I do understand it, and I do see this happening in the United States. This is the theory we have studied of all others, and the consensus and the conflict and the labeling theory that I think makes the most sense with what's going on in the country today, what's going on in the world. Conflict, as I said earlier in my presentation, can be constructive. If you've got people that do not necessarily agree, and they can get together and they can talk about it and they can come to some conclusion, then it can be constructive as long as it's for the greater good of the whole group. But oftentimes it's not what happens. It comes to destruction. So I really hope our political leaders in this country can get on the same page and cut out some of the conflict that's going on in Washington. Thank you very much.